Hold on. Let's see what we do here. You wanna just start off with that one?
Yeah, Everlong. That's if you can do it, sure.
Okay. I don't know the other parts. I was just trying to figure it out. But you want to sing? No.
Let me think about what part is that. Oh my God, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
Yes.
Rock and roll.
Do you like Pretender?
I love everything, man. You know how Stephanie loves gangster rap?
Yeah.
Really hilarious. I think it's totally cool that she loves gangster rap, but
I think one of my favorite rock music videos, like from Foo Fighters, is the Pretender. You know, where all the guys, the police guys there, where their shields are coming towards them. That is insane. You know, when I would speak at conferences, since I would always kind of like you speaking at conferences all over the place, especially with Microsoft, before I would start my presentation, you know, you got about, you know, maybe you're up on stage 10 or 15 minutes or whatever beforehand. I would just rock people out on YouTube and oftentimes I'd say, you know, in more recent years, the last thing that they would see before I would start is I'd play the Pretender video from Foo Fighters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought you were saying the Pretenders.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you hold on for 1 sec? Give me 1 sec, okay? It's like my dad. He's like taking measurements. He's here and just kind of screwing around. Anyways, I had to tell him to get out of my room. It's a pure IoT Coffee Talk moment, right?
It is. That's what happens. That's what happens here.
I'm gonna have to keep that in. It's too funny.
Yes.
So yeah, no, I was thinking that you were referring to the Pretenders.
Oh, right.
Different style, but
yeah,
you know.
I like them too.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely a big Foo Fighters guy.
Yeah.
Definitely a big grunge guy, you know, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I was a hairband guy. I loved all that stuff. Metallica.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I mean, you're right. You had the '80s hair bands, all the rock. You know, it's funny. I have a theory about the bleeding over of the metal hair bands of the '80s into the early '90s, and could they have prevented grunge from taking off? I have a theory about Guns N' Roses.
Really? You have to tell me.
Well, because Guns N' Roses was hot.
You're gonna tell us anyway, so yeah, go ahead.
They were big at the very end of the '80s and going into the beginning of the '90s, and they were so awesome. You could almost make the case if they hadn't just imploded like they did, they could have extended that style of metal and what was happening in the '80s and pushed it further into the '90s. Yeah. Either preventing or pushing back the arrival of the whole grunge thing with you know, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and everybody, Soundgarden, all those guys.
Yeah, but you know, they were a little bit unconventional. They were, you know, I think they were in that genre of sleaze rock, sleaze metal.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And you know, that's just one step away from being grungy. So maybe they were part of the continuum, you know, of going from like glam, you gotta get a little bit sleazy, and then you get grungy.
Yes, maybe that's what it is.
Well, speaking of music, which you and I both love, we were talking about this really talented 10-year-old, right? You were mentioning how she challenged Dave Grohl, and Dave Grohl met her challenge, and some cool things ensued, right?
Yeah, this 10-year-old girl, I think she's in the UK. She did a drumming video where she's doing Everlong, and she's playing the drum, and she goes and just kills it, and puts it on YouTube and everything, and everybody's blown away. And then she, you know, issues a challenge to Dave Grohl to see if he could play the drums for that as well as she did. And so he answers the call, and he does a video of him just playing the drums there. And he admitted he hadn't actually played it himself since the late 90s. And then he concedes and defeat. And says that she was
You
better
kicked
than him.
Yeah.
But also, since Dave Grohl is the nicest guy in the world and basically is single-handedly keeping rock and roll going these days, he wrote a song just for her with her name in it. I think his daughters sang and everything, and it has crazy drum parts to it. And so now she was so just blown away that such a big rocker would notice her. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and it's really cool that the young generation is appreciating the older generation of music, And I guess that's a little bit like what we're going to be talking about today on IoT Coffee Talk, which is the old generation of IT and the appreciation the newer generation or the new entrants should have of all the great stuff that old guys like you who are riding around in submarines and connecting all kinds of weird things, the legacy that you guys founded and all the great things that are being built on top of it, right?
Absolutely. So let me tell you, sit down here with your Uncle Rob by the fire.
We need to have like a little fireplace thing going on behind you, dude.
Well, I tell you about the beginnings of the Internet of Things, and it was happening in the Seattle area during those grunge times, in that early mid 90s, I'm sure we were inspired by Alice in Chains or something like that.
Oh yeah.
To make this happen. And so our sound.
The Rooster.
Yeah, the Rooster. Love that song, man. You should be playing that in the background while we're doing this.
I will. It will happen.
Yeah, it's like
yeah. Oh yeah. Go wrong.
So you know what? I got off of submarines, driving nukes around and stuff like that, and I had to get a job, in the civilian world. And rather than taking myriad offers from Microsoft in that time frame, which I probably should have, I probably have it several, 10 or 20 or 30 extra million in the bank right now had I done that. But instead, I went the startup route, and I joined a startup called Real Time Data. And what we did back then is what people think of as IoT today. It was started by a Motorola guy, who, the old school Motorola first responder, it's all radios, stuff like that. And the thinking was, I think we can bring dumb machines to life with some software, some hardware, and wireless. We were in the earliest stages of primitive wireless data being possible at this time frame. And so this company was born, and I joined it. I was just a kid, and I'm learning for all these old guys, who basically taught me everything I know. And so if I break down, and why does this look like IoT? So we had the vending machine. So the theory, the idea was, hey, every day a route driver who works for a vending company, because it turns out, Coke and Pepsi and all those people, they actually don't own all those vending machines. There's giant vending companies that own those things. And they put them all around the city and skyscrapers and buildings, usually banks of them together. You always see a bunch together. And so the theory was, hey, that guy's going out every day in his pickup truck full of candy and Cokes and whatever to restock. And not mindlessly, obviously they get in the groove. They're visiting all these locations to see, do I need to restock this vending machine? So this is a classic situation. This happens every day in retail. It happens, inventory management. It's just a classic deal because you don't know. And so you have to go find out, which is what IoT is. Right now, people are going to discover something personally. IoT is that machine telling you what you want to know via wireless, right? Instantaneously, so you don't have to visit it. That's IoT at its basis form. And so we wanted to optimize that process for these vending companies. So route drivers aren't just visiting everything mindlessly, whether they need to or not, because there's fuel usage, you're trying to reduce costs, stuff like that, make things more efficient. So I'd say our team was broken into three parts. You had these embedded firmware developers, geniuses doing embedded C development, little black box burning EEPROMs, and putting them in a vending machine. And the vending machines are dumb. So there's no such thing as smart anything. And so a vending machine has these spirals that turn to push your chips out when you put in your quarters to get it. And so back then, it was just quarters, and then a bunch of spirals and stuff like that. So what we do is
What's that? Quarter?
Huh?
What?
A
quarter? What? Coin?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, exactly. An exact change light would come on sometimes, and then you're in big trouble because that could kill sales. So we bought all this cabling. We bought all this equipment to retrofit an old machine to know when people are putting in quarters, to know when spiral number 25 was spinning, and we had our database look up to say, oh, that's Fritos or Lay's potato chips or whatever it is, Snickers. And so we're monitoring that. We're monitoring the inventory and putting that in this little black box firmware controller that's connected by all this. So this is your classic analog to digital thing, kind of like we do today with IoT. The next step is now I know all that information here in the machine. I need to get it back to home base, right? Well, there's no cloud back then to send that to. And so we did it differently. So step 2 is the next team is the RF team, radio frequency guys, these RF engineers. So early days of wireless and having data. And so your choices, unlike today with 5G kids, we had things like 450 megahertz business radio towers, which you could bounce packets off. And this had a really long range because it's a really low frequency, like your subwoofer. Then you had RAM Mobile Data was a company with a technology called Mobitex, which was an Ericsson technology back in the 90s. And you could pay by the byte to get that. There was a technology called CDPD, which was a 19.2 kilobit per second type data thing, which was IP based. Our investors came from Across Cellular, which was the first nationwide cellular network. Most of you know that as AT&T today. And so a lot of pioneers of the wireless industry were up here in the Pacific Northwest. This is where Western Wireless, VoiceStream, all these companies that you may not remember, but they now are T-Mobile and all these other companies today. And they all were up here. And so it's pretty crazy that you had all these wireless guys. And so we're building modems. We had to build our own modems. And I remember being terrified when I'd see this little black box modem mixed to in the old days, kids, we had computer screens that were tubes that were, instead of flat screens. Yeah. And the scary thing is sometimes when we would, you're doing a modem, you're modulating a signal to send data over to this 450 tower. I remember sometimes when the modem was next to this tube monitor that you're looking at for your computer, the screen would go woo and kind of wiggle a little bit when it's transmitting. I don't know. We're still alive, but it's kind of scary stuff. Weird things are happening, right? With radio frequencies and stuff. So we had to build our own modems, and then there's the side where we had a PC. So back then, kids, they had something called the 486 and 386. Back in that time frame, I think I remember getting a 486 DX4 100, and that seemed like a big deal right before the Pentium came out.
Oh my God. You're making me feel old, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm living it. So grandchildren, we had this thing called Windows 3.1, which was a real breakthrough operating system for Microsoft. It ran on top of DOS. Perhaps you've heard of it. And we were blowing through that 640K of RAM memory.
What does DOS stand for?
Disk Operating System.
There you go.
There are lots of documentaries you should watch that will tell you about how our entire technology industry ended up where it was by certain decisions, people choosing to go left versus right, and that's how DOS won over lots of other things, right? Our good friend Bill Gates and Paul Allen. So Visual Basic, which was my first big-time programming language, and that's running on 16-bit Windows 3.1 back then, and we used a database called Access. So nothing enterprise class that you could ever recognize, but it all worked for us. So what we did is from our PC, we would, back then, instead of like USB or things like that, you had serial ports on the back of your PC. Sometimes you had 2 of them, sometimes you had 4. We would plug a cable, a DB9 cable, to the serial port to the modem that we created, and then we would send our data to the business radio towers, 450, and then from there it would go and poll the vending machine directly. So just so I make sure it's clear, the vending machine did not transmit data to Azure or AWS or Google Cloud. It stored it there, and we actually pulled the vending machine directly over wireless and found out we interrogated the black box firmware to say, what is the current state of this machine? What's the inventory? How much money has it made? So that's how it worked. We were polling the machines directly. We built this beautiful Visual Basic app that looked like you were looking at a vending machines, and you could see all the candies and Cokes and Pepsis and Sprites and Snickers, everything. And you could see little numbers showing how many are left in each spiral. You could show how much money that vending machine had made. You could see there was door alarms. If someone tried to break in, we could detect that. All kinds of stuff that may sound familiar, because the funny thing is when IoT got hot again, I saw companies coming out of the woodwork doing exactly what we did, 1,000 years ago, doing, hey, let's go after vending. And so it was an interesting experience I had to learn about creating efficient little tiny packets of data. I couldn't use XML or JSON. That would be incredible, because some of these services we were charging by the byte. So you had to do your little and or XOR bit twiddling to make tiny, strange encoded packets that you would send over this stuff, so that, economics is everything. And also when you have low bandwidth, you need to make sure your messages are tiny, so that things happen more quickly, more responsive. Just like you would do for someone if you're building a mobile app on a phone. Efficiency plays a role there too. If you're sending bloated stuff, the user is waiting too long for the answer to come back to their app and their phone, right?
Right.
It was an incredible journey. It was hard. So I guess what I'm getting across here is, here we are we were in this constrained environment. We had to invent all the stuff ourselves. We've talked about sometimes when you're in a stressful, constrained environment, that's where true innovation comes to life. Yeah. It's not when things are easy. It's not when cash is flowing easily. Right. It's when you're under tremendous stress and constraint. And that was us. And I think that's how we were able to kind of birth the dawn of this IoT age, right? And gave life to the notion, of wireless data, and then as things progressed, as you started getting IP networks, we started using IP to do stuff. And so we were doing true IoT stuff all the way back in the mid-90s, actually. Which is crazy. I know a lot of people think none of this happened until the 2000s or after 2010 or something like that. We're just bringing machines to life. They have a story to tell us. Normally we would visit that machine to find out. Now it's telling us what it is. Great things come along when you're stumbling along. You think you're building something for efficiency for these route drivers. Well, guess what we discovered along the way? Preferences of people. All these things that started coming out because of the internet, we started to discover. So let me give you a quick example. Let's say there's a bank of machines on the second floor of a certain skyscraper. Well, there's people who are working in those buildings and they have certain preferences. And so what we found was that, certain products maybe you're selling faster than others. And we know that in real time. And likewise, other products weren't selling at all. And so all of a sudden we got into merchandising and we found ourselves involved in marketing and things like that. And so we went from being able to use this IoT-ish stuff to say to a customer, hey, I'm making I'm optimizing your routes and everything and saving you money on fuel and a bunch of other things and not having you to go places you don't need to go. But now I'm like, in real time, I'm showing you how you can make more money. I've discovered that the people here at this law firm on the second floor of this skyscraper in Baltimore love those white powdered donuts. So let's double up the number of donuts or triple up on spirals. And then we also noticed that some of these crackers are total losers and nobody ever eats them. So let's get them out of inventory. And so we're stumbling upon the notion of merchandising. And then pretty soon we were able to get to the point where we're saying we are now making you more money and we are saving you money by just through having real-time data, that information. It was kind of magical for us at the time, but it's a very thing that people are trying to do today with IoT, you know?
Yeah, and I think all these things still are relevant. And, you know, there's three things that I take away from these stories that you tell quite often and so eloquently, Rob, is number one, a lot of, you and I talk about this all the time, the value of IoT, a vast majority of it, the benefit to a company or enterprise comes with about 20% of the technology that's available, and what a vendor's trying to sell to you, right?
Yeah.
Today we talk about, there's all this excitement about AI. There's all this excitement about analytics. But the thing is that the scenario you just described, just having that thing tell you some very simple stuff, and the fact that it's connected, right? And, you bring up this whole notion of remote, right? Being able to understand the condition of something remote in very simple terms can provide tremendous business value. And I think, because we have this huge focus nowadays on AI and how it's going to change everything, well, actually, it's probably going to change. It's going to optimize on top of the massive benefit that a simple solution is going to provide. Just merely being able to connect something and getting some data points off of it, or being able to actuate some actions remotely on that thing. The AI is only going to help you really either be able to have cognition at the edge, right, as they call it, quote unquote edge, and or be able to take this data and then maybe optimize what's already pretty good, And one of the things that I actually told Vinky on the Burstcast that I did for him, I said, look, that's something that the industry needs to think about is how, what is AI's role in all this stuff, the IoT? And it's 7 Sigma. And so what's the benefit of that? And are you going to focus so much on that rather than, focusing on all the larger bodies of value that you can pursue through simpler solutions? So, that lower level of maturity, I think, of a IoT solution will actually deliver more value than pursuing level 4 or 5. Do you know what I'm saying?
You're absolutely right.
And so, and I know that's something that you always talk about. You always say, hey, look, there's too much focus on AI, but, I think there's a tremendous amount of merit in that guidance that you provide.
Yeah. A lot of times when people use AI or ML, it's because there's so many variables that it's hard for a human to wrap their head around it. And
right.
So you need help.
Yeah.
It's a lot of what IoT is. A lot of people say it's a multivariate, situation, because your thing is sending so many different data points, and you're doing KPIs or metrics and analytics against each one of those data points and references. And so you're right. It's possible to do normal analytics and write code to figure that out, but it gets harder. Like I always remind people, back then, with a Coke machine, a Pepsi machine, whatever, where it's chilled, there's a compressor in there to make it cold.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Magically, without any AI or ML or deep learning, using just SQL and some code and a tiny little Access database running on Windows 3.1, we predicted compressor failures and knew when they were likely to fail. And so that we could send alerts to the vending company, and it worked. And so we didn't have to do we didn't have to train any ML models to do that, because that's what I hear everybody saying.
Yeah.
And yet somehow we magically did it. And also, we are also told today I need some kind of giant Hadoop data lake or some massive global scalable NoSQL database.
Yeah.
wrong-o. We did it with a little access database. Yeah. We made it all happen. I'm not saying that as you scale to more vending machines, ultimately we did scale up and use SQL Server later on. Right. But a lot of times I think people are being sold a bill of goods by a lot of folks who are actually just being told what to say by their marketing department and don't really understand what they're saying. Right.
And the thing is, before you get to AI, you need to drive the maturity of everything else. You know, you can't sit there and then bring to assume that there's a huge AI market out there today, given the state of maturity of IoT implementations out there. I don't know. That's premature, and we've seen that over and over again. Other IT or OT trends, right? Yeah. People come in and go, they get excited about something, and then once the rubber hits the road, you realize, wait a minute, nobody's ready for this stuff. I mean, how often have you heard that story?
Absolutely, right? All the time.
I mean, all the time. It's almost like a broken record, right? And that's why I think the stories that you're telling, you, Rick, and everyone else in the Coffee Talk panel, and many of them who couldn't make this session, I mean, I think that's what we bring to the table. And why I learned a tremendous amount from you and the others. And the thing that I think is should be a key takeaway for a lot of folks is you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and we don't need to subscribe to hype. I think there's enough experienced people who've been there, done that, and have worked like sort of the edge of innovation, that know the dynamics of innovation, and versus copy and paste, right? Sure. Because now so much of the software world is so abstracted. People are just, pretty much copying and pasting, and they don't really fully understand what's happening underneath, right? We had a session on low code, no code, right?
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's good stuff. But it was great that we were able to take that constrained world, creativity, give birth to this IoT thing where we're remotely knowing the state of something and deriving value from it. It gives me personally perspective today. I have a calmness or a chill about myself because I know the hardest possible way to make that happen. And comparatively today, it all seems mindlessly simple to me. Yeah. It's probably, if I had a tagline, I'm always saying, hey, don't overthink it. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I really believe that, is there a time and a place for super insane, complex stuff? Absolutely. Yeah. But gosh, I really hope people will start their journey. As your point, there's that whole maturity model, Yeah. Let's get that low hanging fruit done. Let's do the simple stuff and get those quick wins. I'm a big fan of getting base hits.
Yeah.
Most people who are trying to be a unicorn, and they're swinging for the fences every time.
Yeah.
And they really should focus on getting base
on the RBIs.
Yeah.
Moving the man around the bases. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you and I have talked about how we're always pushing the envelope for IoT. We're always looking to do more nowhere. And what I mean by nowhere are these really remote, weird places that we haven't been yet, where we would love to get visibility of what's going on. And you're from Texas, the oil industry, and we've talked about how the big majors out there would really, the upstream guys would love to find out, well, what does my reservoir look like? And be able to sit there and send smart dust down into the hole and characterize the reservoir so that they can figure out which way to drill. And, a lot of folks think that when you go and you extract from an asset that you drill down, these drills can actually go sideways, and they're multi-directional. So
it sounds like you almost just did another Alice in Chains song there. I think I heard you say "down in a hole."
Awesome. Yeah, down in a hole, but then in the ocean too, and then in space and all kinds of weird places. I mean, space is the classic constrained scenario, right? But then also all the, you're in the military, all the constrained environments in military, right? Whether it's ground, sea, or air.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Lot of still many frontiers for innovation. But I think one of the things that we need to be cautious about is just folks, like you said, getting caught up in the complexity and not thinking simply in terms of how to pursue value in IoT.
Right. So our final message, don't overthink it, boys and girls.
Keep it simple, silly.
Keep it simple, silly.
Yeah, you don't want to be insulting, right? Keep it simple, stupid. It's pretty harsh.
I just got triggered.
It's just people being silly. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, Rob, I think that's all the time we have for today, right? Skeleton crew. We can only drive this conversation so far.
Got to keep it short and sweet. Absolutely. Bite-sized information for our audience.
Yeah, look, I have a little bit of coffee left.
Oh,
we could go a little bit longer, but we have our day to get to, so.
Absolutely.
So cool, man. So to our Coffee Talk listeners, thanks for joining us this week. We'll be back next week with another fun topic. And remember to follow us at www.iotcoffeetalk.com. Hit that like button, hit that share button, and comment. We'd love to
need comments.
Know what you think. Yeah. Right? Comments.
We want to know. We're YouTubers, and we need comments
officially.
And likes.
Yeah.
And subscribes.
Exactly. Yeah. And we would love to hear where you think we're wrong. We love debate. Come on.
That's what the internet loves.
It would be fun. Yeah. But no trolls. No trolls. Trolls, get away. If you're going to say something substantial. And we're all ears. We're all learning.
Absolutely. We're all learning. Good point.
Okay, man. Rob. Take care. We'll see you next week, man.
Adios.